I'm sure you have seen some people who are skinny but incredibly strong. And the same, many bodybuilders are just huge but not very strong. So how that works? Why some people are big but weak and some people are small but strong? Basically, let me explain you all that in this video. But before we begin, why should you even listen to me? My name is Karol. I have 6 years of experience in strength training and building muscle. I've tested countless different training systems, programs and methodologies, and I've built what I consider is a 10 out of 10 physique while enjoying every single workout. By the way, if you are a beginner or an intermediate who is struggling to make fast and consistent progress, please watch the video I made. It's the top link in the description, and I'm sure it will help you immensely. So first, being strong but small. How that works? Basically, in the gym, you can train two aspects. You can just do two things. You can either develop neurological strength, just pure strength, or you can develop the muscle size. And strength, literally the equation for strength is strength equals neurological adaptations. So basically learning to use the muscle you already have, not increasing the size, just learning to use that. And 50% is the muscle cross-sectional area, which basically just means the size of the muscle. Obviously, the bigger the muscle, the stronger the muscle. There is no way to avoid that. Some people talk about myofibrillar hypertrophy and sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. So basically, some people believe that you can develop your muscles in size, just build the size and not increase the strength at all. And that is what people call myofibrillar hypertrophy. And other people say that you can also build muscle size and at the same time increase the strength, and they call it sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. But basically, all of that is bullshit. And studies proved that every hypertrophy is just a combination of these two. So every single time, if you just build a bigger muscle, a muscle that's bigger in size, every single time you will gain strength. There is just no way to avoid it. So yeah, in the gym you can either learn to use the muscles you already have and thus increase strength, or you can increase the size of your muscles and thus also increase your strength. And people who are small but strong only focus on the neurological aspect. Meanwhile, people who are big but weak, well, kinda weak, because they still will be strong from the muscle size they have, only train the size of the muscle, only focus on getting their muscles bigger. Meanwhile, if they got their muscles bigger and they also learned how to use these muscles, they would be a lot stronger. And strongman competitors do exactly that. However, most bodybuilders simply don't need to learn to use the muscles they already have. They just need to build them bigger. And it's just as simple as that. But in order to not end the video on like 2 minutes or something, let me explain to you exactly how to build neurological aspect of strength and how to build muscular size at the gym. So you can basically know exactly what to do in order to create your own proportions of how much you want to develop each of these qualities. So first, the neurological aspect. Basically, before I explain you this, let me explain what are motor units. Basically, how muscles work. Your muscle tissues in the muscle form very small groups which are controlled by something called motor units. And every one of those motor units have their own like group of muscle tissues. And it can either activate all of them to the highest extent or not be activated at all. So it's either 0 or 1, activated or not activated. And in order to activate those motor units, they basically need a neurological impulse, like an electrical impulse from the central nervous system. But these motor units can't be activated all the time, simply because when the neurological impulse hits them, they can only activate for like a microsecond. So during like a couple of second strain, for example during a bench press repetition, how your motor units work. Basically your nervous system sends impulses to every single motor unit as frequently as it can. So during like a bench press, motor units doesn't just activate, they are like pow, 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 because each pow is another neurological impulse. I hope you understood that. So basically if you looked at a muscle under a microscope, there is like many of these motor units, all of them just activate at a different time. They are not very coordinated. So it's like pow, 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 you know? Every one of them has like its own frequency. Usually all of them have a similar frequency, but they are not coordinated at all. So that is all you need to do. That is basically how muscles work. And as you might already be figuring this out, the way we improve the neurological aspect of strength is through developing like a few different qualities. For example, we teach our nervous system to increase the frequency of those impulses. So each motor unit can just activate more frequently. Another thing we can improve is improving the coordination of all of these motor units. So instead of it being like pow, 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 it's like every single unit fires more or less at the same time. So it's like pow, pow, pow. And this obviously increases your strength also. Another quality you can improve through neurological strength training is, for example, being able to activate certain muscle groups in the most optimal order. So this comes back to just learning the most optimal and the most proper technique to use as little effort as possible. Another quality you can develop is, for example, learning, teaching your body to relax the opposing muscles during a certain lift. So for example, the bicep is responsible for flexing the arm, and the tricep is responsible for obviously extending the arm. So when we do bicep curls, the tricep should be as relaxed as possible, because when we do bicep curls and the tricep also is tensing, it just makes it more difficult to pull the weight up. And with beginners, it's very often the case that when they do, for example, bicep curls, their tricep is also tensing like crazy. So this is also a quality you can develop. And I think there is also a couple more. I think there is 6 in total. I don't know how many I have explained, but that doesn't really matter. So imagine that scientists literally found out which types of rep ranges, which types of intensities develop each of these qualities the best. And that is why periodization is so effective with advanced athletes. They basically go through every single rep range in order to develop every one of those qualities to the highest possible extent. But basically, for beginners or intermediate athletes, or even early advanced athletes, just training in very low rep ranges like 1 to 3 will just develop every one of those qualities to a certain degree. So unless you are like late advanced or an elite athlete, you don't need to use all that periodization, because it will just be an overkill for you. So you've probably heard somewhere that strength is a skill, and it's exactly the truth. If you want to improve the neurological aspect of strength, you need to repeat certain movements as often as possible to get better of them. Specificity is the king here. And because you also need to practice using as many motor units, activating as many motor units at the same time, you gotta have as much volume as you can recover from with heavy weights, so that all of those motor units gets activated. So the best way to have as much volume as possible with heavy weights is to have very low rep ranges, like 1 to 3, as I said, rest for very long between sets, so we can just give it your all on every single set, and have a lot of sets. And also stay very far from failure, because getting close to failure really strains your muscles and it makes them just weaker in following sets. So this is basically what you want to do to develop as much strength as possible. Train at the 1 to 3 rep range while having like 3 reps in reserve at the end of the set. Rest for like at least 5 minutes between sets and do at least 5 sets per movement. And this way you will just most optimize for the neurological aspect of strength. Besides that, you also can train your ability to strength, basically the ability to do a 1 rep max, because it's also a skill doing a 1 rep max. And to do that, you occasionally can just put the most amount of weight on the bar and just strain under it. Put so much weight that completing a rep takes you like significantly longer than with lower weight. But again, do that very occasionally, because that really strains your central nervous system. So now let's talk about why some people are just huge but weak. They just use very light weights during their training sessions. If you can hear the rain behind the window, sorry, I'm not a god, I can't stop it. So first, let me address the situation when someone takes steroids. Basically, steroids, what they do, they allow you to recover a lot more quickly, and thus be able to do a lot more volume on your training sessions. And if you didn't know, the more volume you have, the more quality volume you have during your trainings, the more you will grow. As far as we know right now with current studies, there is no diminishing results. So literally, the more volume you can do, the more your muscles will grow. But most naturals have like a cap at around 20 quality sets per week. They just can't recover from more volume. And if you can't recover, you're obviously not gonna grow. And steroids allow you to do exactly that. They raise that cap so that you can do more volume, which you can recover from. As a result, just grow more. So if you take steroids, you still need to train very hard. You even need to train harder. You need to do more volume than average people. So if someone built like a very good physique with steroids, obviously it took less time to do that than someone who is natural, but I still have a lot of respect for these people because I know that they still needed to train very hard. But the thing is, when you use steroids, your muscles, sure, they recover quicker, but your tendons, they don't. And this is the major problem with steroids. This is why so many people who are juiced up just pull or even snap their muscles so often. Tendons get significantly longer to get stronger and thicker than muscles because there is just a lot worse blood flow in them. And for these reasons, many jacked guys, many steroid users just use very light weights. Well, not very, but they often use just lower weights than they could, or at least than they look like they could, simply because they don't want to snap their muscles, their tendons. And you can grow in pretty much any rep range as long as you have enough intensity, so that is why they often use quite low weights, and they often work on machines because on machines you don't need that much stability and it's just easier for the joints, for the tendons. So if you notice someone at the gym who is only training at the machines and he's using very light weights and he's also really huge, he either is like genetically gifted and he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing, or he's on steroids. The second option is usually more possible. However, there are some people who are also big, they are natural, they don't take steroids, and they also use quite low weights. So why is that? I remember watching a podcast with Alex Leonidas and Jeffrey Verity Schofield, and that guy is huge, and he said his PR on bench press is only 115 kgs. So why is that? Basically, some natural athletes really like to quote-unquote milk the lowest weights possible. As I said, muscle grows from volume and intensity, but the weights you use doesn't really matter. So many natural athletes like Jeffrey like to use quite low weights, but they just have incredible control over those weights. They do slow eccentrics, maybe a little pause at the stretch position and the contraction, and they have huge control. Then they do that for a lot of reps. And yeah, that is why some people are, even as naturals, can't lift that much weight and they are huge. If you actually look at Jeffrey, he doesn't train at all in a way that would allow him to increase his neurological aspect of strength. So that is also the reason why he only benches 115 kgs. I say only because he's fucking huge. 115 is still a lot for like an average guy. But he could simply bench a lot more if he also focused on neurological aspects, so lower reps and a lot higher intensity. However, I also believe that some bodybuilders can be pretty weak just because they only train isolations. Sure, isolations can be great for building muscle, but as I said many times on this channel, the strength you build with isolations is really not functional and not transferable at all to compound movements and daily actions. As an example, I always like to give lat pull down. There are thousands, if not millions of people who are very good at lat pull downs, but at the same time, they are very bad at pull-ups. And if the opposite happens, someone is very good at pull-ups, they will also be very good at lat pull-downs. So this is this is literally how it works. Isolations don't give you functional strength, and that is why some bodybuilders might be considered weak, because strength is usually measured at compound movements like a deadlift or a bench press. So this is pretty much it. Again, if you're a beginner or an intermediate who is struggling to make fast and consistent progress, just watch the video I recorded. It's the first link in the description, because I really think it can help you immensely. That's all for today. Peace out.